Hey everybody, and welcome to our early comics review video. I'm Andy.
I'm Matt.
We're here with Infinity Flux Comics out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and this is our bigger show where we show you some of the biggest and best books that are coming out this week to your local comic book store, or if you order them over at infinityflux.net, they are on their way, flying across the world in their own special Infinity Flux airplane to you.
The Infinity Flux private jet, right?
Yeah, that's what we go everywhere on anyway,
for
so
sure.
it's good to put it to good use. But we've got a great show for you this week, going over some of the best books, some big ones this week. I've got a lot of number ones, so you don't want to miss out on this. I do want to tease real quick that we are going to have a special video coming up very, very soon for Free Comic Book Day. If you're not aware, May 4th is Free Comic Book Day. There's going to be tons and tons of special books from all different publishers that will either be brand new things, stuff that are teasing big things coming up, reprints, all that. We will let you know about them because we're going to read them all.
All of them.
We are doing it so you don't have to, and you can be better prepared going to your store to know what you want. But that will be coming up probably in the next week or so. So
we're shooting for next Saturday, so 1 week before Free Comic Book Day.
So you have plenty of time to watch it and make your notes and all of that. But we will remind you constantly up until that point.
You will be at the end. You'll be like, "We get it." Saturday video. Yeah, we got it. Yeah.
But let's get into this week's book, starting with a very big one.
Yeah, we're gonna start with Ultimate Spider-Man #4, just continuing a really awesome run of books. Now, I will say this is the first appearance of the Earth 616 version of Gwen Stacy. We haven't seen her yet, but we do in this, and she's very interesting in this. Now, there's no action in this whatsoever. I'll go ahead and say that this whole issue is just Peter and MJ on a dinner date with Harry and his wife, Gwen Stacy. And the whole thing is them just at dinner talking about various things, talking about the state of the world that they live in. Gwen mentions that, you can tell that the news is kind of, I think she says, sanitized or controlled, which is very true because Wilson Fisk owns a Daily Bugle. Wilson Fisk is in cahoots with the Maker and all of those guys. Yeah. But they also talk about that mysterious masked character swinging around the city, that kind of thing. We get to learn what Mary Jane has been up to, over the last few months, what she does for work, how she got there, that kind of stuff, which has been very interesting because we haven't really seen much of MJ except when she's like, "Hey, I'm going out, taking whatever." So we actually get some good quality Mary Jane time, which is great. We also see that aren't them at dinner, and those pages are Ben and Jonah babysitting Richard and May, the kids. And although we don't see much of the kids, Ben and Jonah just talking about their new news organization, what direction they should go. We do learn the name that they picked out for their new news organization
and who picked it
out. So yeah, that's very cool to learn all of that. But a very quiet, very calm issue. But I still, unlike the Ultimate Black Panther issue last week, where there also wasn't really much going on, this one I still feel like really helped move the story forward, really helped to build the world even more.
Necessary stuff.
We learned some about Gwen. Gwen actually even makes a type of proposal to MJ to do something at one point. That was pretty cool to see them interact. Just a really good, solid issue of Ultimate Spider-Man. Probably not one that kids are going to be super excited to read, but one that I was really interested in reading. Like I was invested in their dinner conversation about all these different things.
There is a lot of really interesting stuff that goes on this. One, it is weird to see Gwen Stacy being introduced to Peter Parker.
Right.
It's like, really cementing this is not your normal universe.
For sure.
A lot has changed in this. And kind of what was Gwen Stacy's path before it got interrupted by Spider-Man, coming into her life that really shook things up. She's a very successful person when Spider-Man wasn't there. So it's really cool to see this. And there's also, we know that Harry is Green Goblin in this. That was, in the last issue. We learned that and everything. But what is kind of the parallels between the relationship between Harry and Gwen when there's that superhero element versus Peter and MJ? And, how open are you about this thing, this huge part of your life
Right.
now? It's so hard to describe because it's like, yeah, I mean, I don't think you see Spider-Man once in
Nope.
this, and there's no action, but it was probably, I mean, one of my favorite issues so far because I just felt like, man, this is some rich
Yeah.
storytelling here,
Yeah.
that will pay off in future issues with action.
Yeah.
But for this moment, it's a lot of really good world building.
Yeah, so just want to set your expectation now about what it is, but I still enjoyed it. You
Yeah.
still enjoyed it. Like it's still really, really good, and like I said, feels kind of necessary,
Yep.
So anyway, we have our A cover right here. We got some cool variants as well. We've got a this is the Sanford Green variant with Spider-Man. I always love these kinds of covers. This is the Torque variant with Spider-Man and the Fam. And then here is kind of sort of what most of the issue looks like, at least from a narrative standpoint. We have this is the Manhanini variant with all of them at dinner. And then not part of this Ultimate Spider-Man title, but we did want to let you know about the second printing of Ultimate Universe #1. This was the one shot that came out after the Ultimate Invasion miniseries. I don't know why it was its own book because it really just feels like Ultimate Invasion #5. But if you want to know, if you haven't read this and you want to know about just this world that we're in, this is a very important issue because this shows you what Tony Stark did in order to try to set the world right. This was a really, really good one, a really good follow up to that Ultimate Invasion miniseries. So if you missed it the first time, now is your next chance to get it.
That might be one of the reasons they did set it apart because you can read that without reading the other to get the base of, why wasn't Peter bit by the
Right.
spider and how did, he get the suit later and,
Yeah.
and stuff. It's kind of the necessity part of that whole
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. The ending of this leads very well into the first issue of Ultimate Spider Man. So if you read that, but you didn't read this and you're a little bit confused, this should answer some questions for you.
Yep. Okay, next up, we've got another big one. This is Duke #5. This is our final issue of Duke and of our first G.I. Joe outing in the new Image Energon universe phase of storytelling. So it's really cool to see the first one kind of wrapping up. Hopefully, you've been reading it along the way because it has been fantastic, but this does a lot to set the stage for what is coming later. So I don't want to give too much away about this issue. I'll say Duke, his whole goal in this was to kind of prove that he's not crazy, that what he really saw that we know now is, a transformer. And the people he kind of blamed for that's who he's been seeking to kind of get the proof. Well, what happens when he finally finds the person he thought was behind it the whole time and they say, we also don't know
Right.
who did that? So a lot happens in here. There's a lot of action, a lot of really good stuff, but we do see the kind of seeds um, of Duke's old life ending and his new life beginning as the kind of Duke we know who's going to be the leader of G.I. Joe. I don't want to give away how, but it's a very pivotal moment in his life.
Yeah, it's tough to talk about this issue specifically because it's the end of this miniseries. Don't want to spoil anything, but it's important for what is to come next for GI Joe and that world in the Energon universe.
And what Duke's next step is going to be, when he does finally re-encounter the Transformers, based on his original run-in with them, he's not a fan of them. So what is his goal going to be
Yeah.
going forward? It might not be, G.I. Joe best friends with Transformers. It might be G.I. Joe versus Transformers. So I'll lay that little nugget there. But a fantastic issue. I'm kind of really sad to see this one ending because I was really enjoying it. But we've got so much coming up. We've got the last issue of Cobra Commander, and then they're launching Destro and Scarlet, which are going to be huge as well as we continue to piece this together.
Yeah, and then just a quick tease about the Energon Universe Free Comic Book Day book.
It's really hard to talk about this and not talk about that.
I know, because I read this and then immediately read the Free Comic Book Day Energon Universe book, and definitely isn't the last that we're seeing of Duke.
Yeah.
And his story is going to maybe get even more
I
complicated.
was about to say, it really feels like we're not getting it. You gotta stay tuned for our Free Comic Book Day video, but it feels more like, oh, this is just the beginning for Duke.
Literally the very, very beginning. Duke's world is going to get even crazier.
This series is kind of a prequel for the rest of Duke's life.
Yeah.
So just a tease there, once again, for Free Comic Book Day. But wrapping up of Duke, fantastic. It's not a spoiler to say the last issue introduced one of the Cobra Bats.
Right. Well, yeah, he's right.
Yeah, he's on the cover. I guess
there's a lot of this in the issue.
Yeah, and I guess you wouldn't say they're Cobra Bats at this point since Cobra's not
Cobra doesn't exist
a
yet.
thing.
Yeah.
But just a throwdown between Duke and a bat is really horrifying to see. Like, it feels more realistic than like in the cartoon where it's just kind of the Joes will always take out all of them. It's like, no, it takes Duke a lot to even face off against one of these, and we know there's going to be hundreds and thousands of these things. So just great issue of Duke. We've got a couple of variants for it. I think we only actually have one variant for it. This is the Santaluco variant, who was your artist on TMNT. So it's very cool to see that kind of behind-the-scenes crossover.
Yeah. All right. Well, next up is Dick Tracy #1. This is the start of a new series. I don't know if this is ongoing or a miniseries, but a new series from Mad Cave. This is written by Alex Segura and Michael Morecci, and the art is by Geraldo Borges. And this is set in 1947. And the whole thing starts with there's a city alderman named Emil Trueheart, and he is meeting with a crime reporter named Langdon Marsh. They are meeting in a diner at 2 a.m. and the narration says, nothing good ever happens at a diner. You don't meet somebody at a diner at 2 a.m. for like simple reasons or whatever.
Except for Waffle House.
That's right. Oh, that's true. Yeah. But Trueheart, the alderman, wants to give this crime reporter some information that could blow the lid off the city, is what it says. But before he can, these two goons enter the diner and shoot the place up, killing everyone in there, including those two characters. And then the next day, in comes Dick Tracy, arriving on the scene to investigate the shooting and why it may have happened. He can tell that Trueheart and Marsh were the targets for this, even though there was a whole lot of other bodies laying around. He can tell that they were the targets, and his mission, what the crux of this series is going to be, is who done it? Because it's Dick Tracy. Who done it, and why did they do it? And he's definitely going to run into a lot of problems along the way, though. Trueheart's daughter, Tess, she is part of this as well. She uncovers some information about what her dad was into, and she's going to work with Dick Tracy over the course of this series to try to solve this mystery. Just some good classic Dick Tracy. Nothing that's going to set the world on fire. No fantastical elements, just a whodunit, why'd they do
Sounds
it,
very
that kind of
true
thing.
to Dick Tracy.
Yeah, very true to Dick Tracy. We do see at least one Dick Tracy villain, I guess you would say. They're going to figure into this, and then the solicitations told us that we would see several more Dick Tracy villains along the way. It also told us that we would see his special radio watch, and you can see it on the cover, but we don't see it in this issue. So, but it'll show up at some point. But yeah, super classic Dick Tracy. We haven't seen him do much of anything in a really long time, so it was cool to get a new book, a new whodunit with Dick Tracy. Really cool. So we got our A cover right here. We got a couple cool variants as well. This is our Martinborough variant, which looks a little like Warren Beatty, if you ask me. And then this is a really cool one from Schoonover. I like that.
Very cool. Next up, I have a new Star Wars book. This is Star Wars Darth Maul Black, White, and Red #1. So much in the style of Marvel's Black, White, and Red series they've done. They've done Deadpool. They've done Wolverine. They've done Alien. They've done everything.
Carnage. And
this one is very fitting because those are literally his color palette.
Right.
So this is written by Ben Percy and the art is by Stefano Raphael. And this is, I know, like the Vader one was a couple of stories with a ongoing story in the back that went through all the issues. This is one story. So
Okay.
I did really like that. It was a complete story.
Yeah, I think all the other ones, Carnage and Wolverine, I think they've all been like anthology, just like short little
Yeah.
stories. They may or may not have bled into another issue, but yeah, to have one that's one full story,
It's
that's
really
new.
nice. And of course, this takes place pre episode one because, of course, Darth Maul is still
Mm.
alive. So it makes it interesting because he's working for Palpatine, who at this point is not the Emperor. He's Darth Sidious, who's still very cloak and dagger, hidden away. But Palpatine calls Darth Maul in because he has a special mission for him. There's a transport ship that is heading to a prison planet, and it is carrying uh, like these cultists whose goal, they're called the final occultation, and their goal is to extinguish the Sith and kind of replace them and bring chaos to the galaxy. So even though the Sith are bad, they still don't want this to happen because they would rather control it than it go to
Sure.
complete
Yeah.
chaos. So Palpatine's basically like, our enemies are on this ship, and when it came out of hyperspace, it was completely radio silent. We can't get any transmission. We only got one transmission. He shows it to him, and it's very horrifying of this like kind of creature thing, very just staticky and all of that. And he's like basically like, okay, Maul, you're gonna go find out what's going on here. And Maul's like, okay, I guess I'm gonna do that, even though it
I
sounds
guess.
like a terrible idea.
Yeah.
So, uh, Maul goes to the ship, and it is he is told there are three leaders of this cult that you may encounter: um, Helby Cerebron, Vasig Aldrich, and one just called Unknown. And like one is just kind of like a weird alien floating brain thing. Another one is kind of a like big tough guy, and the Unknown is kind of like almost looks like a demogorgon from Stranger Things. And so Maul knows these are things I might encounter while I'm there. Of course he's going to encounter them, but what else does he find on the ship? It is pretty much like a Star Wars horror story.
Mm.
The closest thing I could think of was like Event Horizon
Okay.
with Sam Neill, like space madness mixed with like you're tapping into something you shouldn't be tapping into, weird rituals, all of that. But of course, Darth Maul behind it all. How does he maneuver all of this? It's super cool. I really like this. It really, the tone of it worked really well, especially with Darth Maul, where you're kind of rooting for him the whole time because I don't know, he's the protagonist, but he's bad, but it's still really, really cool. So very Lovecraftian. The art is awesome. So especially there's a few panels, and you can see them online. They've released where he first encounters one of the three leaders, and just the contrast. Like you could almost see this as like he's going through the ship, and their kind of alert lights are on, so it's all red.
Okay.
So it feels very
Oh.
intense because
Okay.
of that as well. And so the characters are all highlighted in red. There's still former members of the ship who are going crazy and like have like locked themselves behind doors and all of that. So all that to say, it's a one and done story, which is fantastic. We'll see what the next issue holds. But for a first one off, I highly recommend picking it up. It's a really fun story. That if you've even never read, a Star Wars series or a long running one, this is a great one just to kind of sink your teeth into
Yeah.
for a first time. So very excited about this new miniseries, Darth Maul, Black, White, and Red, #1. That is our A cover. Got some interesting variants considering we have a Frank Miller variant.
Okay.
Never thought I'd see Frank Miller drawing a shirtless Darth Maul, but there you go.
Check that off the bucket list.
Yeah, we've got a photo variant. There's Ray Park himself as Darth Maul. And we have this 1 in 25 Marquez variant that we're selling for $29.99 while supplies last over infinityflux.net.
All right. Well, next up is Drawing Blood #1. This is a new series. I want to say, isn't this 12 issues?
I believe it is because it's a couple of volumes.
Okay.
Um, intended to be.
Yeah, so anyway, first issue though, this is written by Kevin Eastman and David Avalon, and the art is by Ben Bishop. This is about a comic book artist named Shane Bookman, who at one point when he was younger in his life created a global phenomenon called the Ronin Ragdolls, which basically are like Ninja Turtles, except
Yeah.
cats. This is very, this does borrow from Kevin Eastman's life a little bit, but it's also pretty fantastical too.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there's this global phenomenon, much like Ninja Turtles was. It became very popular all around the world. It made Shane Bookman a very rich person for a while. But Shane went into business with a seasoned comic book professional named Frank Forrest, and we see some of their backstory.
Drawn by Eastman, which is awesome.
Was it drawn by Eastman,
Yeah.
or was it the other guy in? Was it Ben Bishop in Eastman's style? Because it didn't say that Eastman did any.
Eastman did some of the art in this.
Okay.
It says underneath which parts.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, because it was a flashback sequence where we see Shane meeting Frank Forrest. He's getting his autograph. He's like, "I love your work," and that kind of thing. They end up going into business together to publish this new Ronin Ragdolls book. But then Frank passes away because he was much older than Shane.
He was a very jaded.
Yeah, oh yeah, he was like,
creator.
if I had known,
I would have cut my hands.
yeah, I would have cut my hand off so I couldn't draw anymore, something like that. But Frank did pass away, and Shane learned afterwards that Frank had embezzled around $2 million from their publishing company and got in bed with some really shady people. Used that money to try to pay off some debt that he had incurred by doing some shady stuff. Well, now that Frank is gone, those bad people that he was working with, they come to Shane to collect on the debt. And this starts Shane's descent into the criminal underworld, basically. Now, this story is told a little bit out of order. So at the very beginning of the issue, we actually already see Shane, who is already in deep with these bad people, trying to get out, that kind of thing. And presumably the series is going to be how he got into this situation and how he's going to try to get out of it. So if you think about, Kevin Eastman and, how he co-created the Ninja Turtles, which is a global phenomenon, but also then imagine that Kevin Eastman fell in with some bad people and was trying to get out. That's kind of sort of what this story is about. And, like I said, co-written by Kevin Eastman, so I bet he's having a lot of fun doing it. So just a cool new series. Ninja Turtles a little bit, but also its own crime story.
Loosely autobiographical.
Very loosely, yeah.
Very loosely, but kind of he can speak to certain experiences in the industry.
Yeah.
There's even, I was trying to look it up, their publishing company, and this is called like Arctic or something like that.
Something like that.
But in the real world, they had Tundra.
Oh, right.
And it's a very like play off of that. And yes, the flashback sequences where the layouts were done by one artist, but the finishes are done by Eastman.
Okay.
So yeah, you do get some Eastman pages, about as much as you get in Last Ronin, like
right,
a two-page
yeah.
little
and
thing.
You know it when you see it. It looks exactly the same as not in a bad way, but yeah, you know it when you see those pages. But a really cool new series if you want some little bit of crime in your comic book mix. This is a good one to get. So we have this A cover right here, and then speaking of Kevin Eastman, we have a Kevin Eastman variant right there with a cat, and maybe a cat with like a little ninja star looking thing, and that's kind of what it is that they created.
Yeah, there's even some surreal moments, maybe where the art comes to life and
yeah
it's called, like, I think there's a different artist on that part. It's called the hallucinations, but it's really fun. And I've seen some future issues of this. They get into stuff like he made a movie of these characters at some point, and there's a really nice moment too where I believe it's his brother that he lives with. It's like, when's the last time you've drawn something?
Oh, right.
And he's like 2 years ago when I drew the cover to an omnibus
or
whatever. And he's like, maybe you should try drawing.
Just sit down and draw something. Yeah.
And I just thought that was a really cool moment in this. But very interesting. I think especially if you like the business of comics and stuff. Like, you do get the crime aspect, but you also just kind of get a behind the scenes of how the sausage is made type thing. Okay, so next up for me, I've got one I really enjoyed. This is Universal Monsters Creature from the Black Lagoon Lives #1. So this is by Dan Waters and Ram V, which I think is interesting. 2 writers on this. But it doesn't feel, it's not like chopped into two parts or whatever. The art is by Matthew Roberts, and the coloring, I always like to point out, is done by Dave Stewart, who I love from Hellboy and a lot of the Mignolaverse stuff. So this is set. I'm not sure like how many years after the movie it's set, but it's basically like real time, I would say. Uh, so that was back in like the 40s, 50s, and this takes place now. So we meet a character named Kate Marsden. She's a journalist who is plagued by nightmares. She even like takes a lot of stuff so she doesn't go to sleep because she has these
Wow.
nightmares. Because we learned previously she was investigating. I think he's a serial killer, but he is definitely a killer at one point. And she got a little too close, and he actually attempted to drown her. And
Okay.
so she's very like every time it even begins the issue with her having kind of this flashbacks of being underwater and his face looking at her from above the water. Very kind of traumatizing, but it really sets her character up because rather than this really holding her back, she's now like really pursuing the story. She's like, I've got to finish this. It's almost like I can't even really sleep until this story is done. And her editor, whatever, is like, I don't think you should be doing this, but I can't stop you. You're so like strong-willed. You're gonna
You're gonna do it
go
anyway.
you're gonna go above me
That's
anyways.
very
And
Perry White and Lois Lane. Yeah,
yes,
you're gonna do it anyway.
and they have a very like similar conversation to one they would have. But she gets a lead and has been living in Peru for a little while, kind of following the leads and everything, making friends with locals. I'm not sure if Peru's the first place she goes, but she kind of globe hops as she's looking for this guy. But she befriends people. She even befriends someone at like a convenience store that's like she's clearly like giving them a heads up about this guy, and they tell her like, oh, he came in or whatever. So she's so close to finding this guy. And she starts hearing reports. She's near the Amazon that there's been like 5 people drowned, and it's in a very weird way where they've been found with like black mud inside of their lungs.
Ew.
So it's been like their air's been
That's
replaced.
bad for you.
And so she believes, okay, this is the killer. Like I finally like I've got to stop him now. But a local woman is basically like, it's it's the creature that did it, and he did it in a very uh not a gentle way, but apparently if you drown because of this mud, it's very peaceful and everything, and it's a sacrifice to the river and stuff. And she's like, that's a load of baloney. I'm not doing that. But maybe there's more to this story. I mean, we clearly know this is a creature from the Black Lagoon thing. So how does all of these factors come together? The serial killer, the creature, and Kate Marsden, because is the creature bad? Is it good? And will she have to kind of face the water once again with all of this? It's a really cool issue. It's a great setup. I'm glad it's not a kind of a retread. I liked the Dracula book, the James Tynion Dracula book, but it was very much like this happened. These are like deleted scenes from the movie. This is like a whole new thing that I thought was really cool. So if you're a fan of the classic movie, I think you'll really like this, but also it's a fresh enough take, being set kind of in a modern setting and storytelling wise, and bringing a different angle. It's not, they're not on a riverboat. They
Right.
don't deal with all that kind of stuff. So it's a fresh take on it that I think a lot of people will really enjoy. And I'm looking forward to future issues. So we've got our A cover right here, which I believe is a Francavilla. Is that a
Kind of
Francavilla?
looks like it.
Not super sure, but it's a very cool A cover. Then we also have a Joshua Middleton variant. Very feels very Jaws.
Yeah.
And we have a 1 in 10 Danny variant that we're selling for $7.99.
All right. Next is Feral #2. The first one was really good, sold really well, and now we've got our second issue here. In this one, our 3 cats, Elsie, Patch, and Lord, they finally kind of realize that there is indeed something wrong with all the animals around them in the woods. They know not to go near them, that they're dangerous. They're just trying to get away. That's all they're trying to do. And while running through the woods trying to get away from these feral animals trying to get home, they actually meet two other outdoor cats named Jonas and Scratch. And it's cool the way these cats are drawn because they're drawn a little bit
They're
beefier,
outdoor cats. Our main characters are indoor cats. These are
Right.
outdoor cats who are like, I think at one point they even we're like, we have to eat, so they bring like a dead squirrel, and the
yeah.
indoor cat's like, oh, we're not eating that, and they're like, you gotta,
Yeah,
this
you
is
got
just
to.
what
Yeah,
you do.
yeah. They're a little bit more swole and built, that kind of thing, and they know where to go. They know the woods, and they know how to get away from these things, or at least how to stay out of the reach of these other feral animals. And most of the issue is just these five cats running through the woods. Um, at one point, Lord insists that he knows the way home. They have to climb up in a tree at one point, and he says, "I saw home. It's over by these trees." Over by the river, that kind of thing. And I believe it's Scratch who says, "Oh, yeah, I know where you're talking about." So they have a plan about where they're going to go, how they're going to get there. But obviously, that's easier said than done. Some rough things happen along the
I said in the
way.
other show, not for the faint of heart,
Yeah,
because even though they look cute, no one's safe in
no
this.
one is safe.
And really, there's even a turn the page moment that's kind of a shock.
Yep.
And it's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like that's brutal. So
I think I audibly exclaimed, "Oh my gosh," when I saw that. Yeah.
it was very rough, but the art in this is so
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, very good. And yeah, I mean that's just I love it. I love the stray dogs, cutesy animals in a terrible story, and now this is the same cute animals in another terrible story.
And there is a little bit more about what is the bigger picture here. What about the humans and everything, where the story is basically just set in the woods, but
Yeah.
how is this affecting bigger thing? And we get like a page that's, I feel like we're never going to get a full picture because most of this is from the cat's perspective,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it's like, oh, there may be, another threat coming too.
Yeah, a little bit of a tease near the end to let us know that things are going to get even worse for these cats before everything's said and done. So another excellent issue. If you
Yeah.
like the first one, you're probably going to like. I like this one even more than the first one.
I did too.
It's fantastic. So there is our A cover right there, and then we have this really nice movie poster homage variant. Let us know in the comments what that is homaging. Just be kind of fun. I mean, we know.
You know what it is.
Yeah, we know, but it's
But
just
say,
no, yeah, no, but it's just fun to talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I also believe there is a second printing of #1 coming out this week as well.
Oh, okay.
So if you missed out or your store sold out of it, definitely pick that one up because I mean, Stray Dogs. I'm glad to know it wasn't a fluke. That
Right.
they can continue this,
Yeah.
and I think Feral is ongoing at least for the most part.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, they mentioned that I think in the
I forgot
in the
about
first
that.
one. So it's like buckle in because this is going to be a ride.
Right.
Okay, my next one is a super fun one. This is Pooh versus Bambi #1. Yep, that is Pooh Bear right there on the cover.
With a big old
so
gun.
this is from Zenescope. It's written by Noah Mitchell and the artist by Jordi Tarragona, which I think the writing and art in this are actually really, really good.
It looks really good.
We
Yeah.
don't really talk about Zenescope books too much, mostly because they're all pretty in their own world. It's all like the Grimm fairy tale stuff. They're all pretty self-contained. This is not part of that. This is a separate thing. And I was kind of shocked how much I enjoyed this. So
I mean, we weren't expecting it to be bad, but when you see like Pooh and Bambi, like, oh, that sounds silly, but it's really cool.
It's really cool. So deep in the 100-acre woods, there is kind of think of all of this as through the lens of like an 80s action movie, almost like Commando or something like that, or Predator, that kind of thing. Because we have, I guess you would call him Agent Pooh, or something like that. There's this kind of strike team that is under the leadership of General Robin, and you've got Pooh, his best friend Bambi. They're all just super buff versions of these characters. So Bambi
it's like 90s extreme versions of Bambi.
You got Bambi, he's a bipedal with a machine gun.
Yeah.
You've got Pooh the same way. You've got Eeyore, you've got Rabbit, Owl, and you have Tigger. Tigger's horrifying because he's just like the most ferocious, like giant, just He doesn't need a weapon. He has his claws and
Right.
his teeth. We'll
Yeah.
say that.
He's really big.
So they're on a mission in the 100 Acre Woods for General Robin, and they are trying to extract a scientist. We don't necessarily know why they need this, but they follow orders and everything. And they realize when they get to the compound, as they've brutally fought their way there, uh, Bambi actually does something pretty terrible to the scientist, and Pooh questions why he did that. They were supposed to take him out alive.
Hmm.
And Bambi says, "You don't really know the full story. You think we were like raised in test tubes, we were these special things, but we were actually taken from the wild and experimented on. And these scientists here are actually defectors from the group we're actually working for." And this kind of throws everything, everything Pooh thought he knew was wrong type thing. So much he can't believe it that him and Bambi, go at it. And we get a flash forward to, I guess, where most of the story is going to take place, where Pooh is now just up against a tree eating honey all
Yep.
day, but he's grown
With a big old belly full of honey. Yeah.
belly and a big old beard.
Yeah.
And that's when his past comes back to haunt him. He has nightmares of what happened to Bambi on that day that he was forced to do. But he gets attacked by uh, maybe another special agent, and he might be pulled back into the life he thought he left behind.
Just when I thought he could get out, they pull him right back in.
So just it's so 80s movie. It's so like tongue in cheek. It knows exactly what it is. It's one of those things. Wait till you see Tigger. Wait till you see who is Agent Piglet. It's all just a big spin on these now public domain characters,
Yeah.
but done, I think, in a pretty fun, unique way. So I recommend it. It's I think it's going to be a couple issue miniseries.
Yeah, and I know that people are kind of sick of like, because what's the
Blood and Honey.
Blood and Honey? Yeah, I think they're gonna make a third one of those, and people are like, enough is enough with making Pooh weird. But this is really well done. Like, it's a very clever, creative story, great art. Like, this one is a good use, I think, of the public domain thing.
So we've got a couple of variants. We have the Aberdonza variant. That is a character in the book. You have to find out who she is.
Oh yeah.
And we also have this Victorino variant. This is actually a wraparound. So you've got Bambi on one side, and on the back side is Pooh facing off. He's facing off.
Yeah, it's just hilarious. All right. Well, next up is Spectregraph #1, and this is a new book from Distillery. You can see right there. This is written by James Tynion, and the art is by Christian Ward, so you know it's going to be spooky all the way around.
Yeah. Floaty, yeah.
So it starts in 1967. There's this billionaire named Ambrose Everett Hall, and he's part of some kind of secret cult that's full of other rich people, like the top 1% kind of group. He tells them that he has spent years building this machine to research the afterlife, because this cult is all about the afterlife and getting to the afterlife, what happens. He says, well, I built a machine to research the afterlife, and I've concluded that there is no afterlife. There's no afterlife. There's no such thing as ghosts. But then he says, but there should be. There should be. And that's it. And then flash forward to present day 2024. Ambrose Everett Hall, the billionaire, he's actually passed away, and his big mansion is for sale. And he has been alone inside this mansion for the most part ever since that day in 1967, alone in his mansion, building this machine. And so now that he has passed away, his mansion's up for sale. Some members of the cult, they send a representative in with the realtor selling the mansion to walk through the house so that they can get a look at the machine. Because, like I said, they've been curious about what he's been working on for decades. What answers did he find, or what did he do? So the representative that they send in with the realtor, she actually finds a machine and turns it on. And then some weird things happen. I didn't quite understand it, and I don't think we're supposed to know right now. It's one of those where you've got to read the full story to understand exactly what it is that's going on. But with Christian Ward on art, there's some really creepy imagery. This does have elements of like, horror, thriller, supernatural kind of thing. And again, I didn't understand it enough to tell you what it is. Not that I would anyway, because I don't want to spoil it. but it's very James Tynion. It's very spooky, that kind of thing, with this secret cult and the afterlife and mysteries. And there's also something pretty, as a dad, that kind of freaked me out, that involved a baby. Nothing like what you're thinking. Nothing like mean, or well, nothing super duper dangerous for baby, but like something that happens, it weirded me out a little bit. So yeah, this book gave me some chills basically, and yeah, it's another good entry into the distillery library. So I would recommend it if you like those kinds of books. But it was cool. So we have our A cover right there, and we have some variants. We have the, oh shoot, I didn't get the names for these ones.
The Jenny
Yeah, that's the
Friesen.
Jenny Friesen variant. That's the representative that the cult sends in. She's the one that activates the machine with interesting results, I should say. This is, well, I'm sorry guys, I didn't get the names for these ones, but that one looks super creepy. We do have this 1 in 10 Ekman lawn variant that
That's cool.
yeah, that's. Oh, and I forgot to mention, like, the mansion, it's kind of like it's built like a giant puzzle box almost. Like, to even get in, you have to turn a key and then press a certain sequence of numbers, and then when you're in there, if you don't do certain things, then you'll get locked in. It's almost like a big, like, puzzle box or something. The entire mansion is like that. So another cool element to the story. But yeah, this is the 1 in 10. We're selling that for $11.99. And then there is a 1 in 25 Trad Moore variant that we're selling for $29.99. And then there is a 1 in 50 Christian War variant that we're selling for $79.99. And that's about what the weird stuff is, that I can't explain. It kind of looks like that, but I do have a feeling that once we read the whole thing, it'll make much more sense.
Yeah. Okay, next up for me, I've got a new entry in a very sword and sorcery world. This is Slash presents Deathstalker: The Return of the Last Great Warrior King. So, couple of things with this. One, it's based off of I think it's 1983 Deathstalker movies.
Yeah, I think there's 4 of them.
There's 4
and
of them.
The numbers 2 and 3 feel very different in tone than 1 and 4 do.
Yeah,
it's weird.
This one has characters, I think, from 2 in it, and I tried to do as much deep dive as I could. There's not a whole lot of information about those movies because they're not considered the greatest. I think the 4th one reused a lot of footage from the first one and stuff like that. But and this is, I guess, spearheaded by Slash, the guitarist and artist from Guns N' Roses and so many other things. But it's written by Tim Seeley and the art is by Jim Terry. So I guess Slash just kind of put his name on this, maybe approached them about doing it. But this is a very over the top sword and sorcery book. This is, Conan times 11 type thing. Very much a very humorous book in the same way. So I can't give away too much about the story because it's a very mature story. Even what the instigating acts are that causes the entire thing. But we'll say Deathstalker, he's just a kind of a sword for hire, wandering warrior type thing. He just wants to have a good time, much like Conan. But he saves a woman from a monster. And turns out she's part of a cult. And because of some debauchery that happens in this, now the girl's brother is coming to get her, and it's not going to be good. So I would say a lot of this is like Deathstalker puts himself in situations that he has to fight his way out of because of his decisions, which he's very flippant about. So there's a lot of humor in it. There's a lot of violence in it. And just a lot of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that just happened type thing. So definitely for a mature audience, but if you're a fan of like barbaric, this is very similar to that, and it actually is going to cross over with barbaric. Deathstalker and barbaric are going to have a crossover in a few months. I think maybe May or June or something like that.
Is it going to be a separate title or just like?
I believe it's a one shot.
Okay.
They even show it at the back of this issue.
Oh, nice.
It's like,
I love
Barbaric, read this, and then read this.
Barbaric is great. I love it.
Barbaric's great and very much has the same tone as this. So if you like that kind of thing, definitely check this one out because I had a lot of fun with it. But once again, for mature audiences
Mm-hmm.
only. And that's the only cover I have.
Oh, nice. All right, well, next is Batman Dark Age #2. This one was great, and the first issue was really cool. This one was even better, I thought, because Bruce is starting to grow up now. We're starting to see his life really, really diverge from what we know traditionally. The issue starts in 1965 on Bruce's 18th birthday, where after the events of last issue, we saw at the end of last issue he was sentenced to prison for crimes he didn't commit, basically. So his 18th birthday is on 1965. He is serving time in Blackgate Prison. Um, it moves up to 1966, where he is recruited to be part of a special kind of black ops unit for the military, because it's in the thick of the Vietnam War, and he's recruited to be part of this unit in the Vietnam War under the command of Ra's al Ghul. So it's not quite League of Assassins kind of thing. But he is still running this secret squad deep in the depths of Vietnam, deep in the jungle, very off the books. He is running this squad, teaching people, teaching some young men how to be silent kill, be assassins, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically this world's version of the League of Assassins, but it's all under the American military, all in during the Vietnam War. And most of the rest of this issue, once he actually gets there, is Bruce, as well as a couple of other recognizable DC characters who are also part of this unit. They are learning all about guerrilla warfare from Ra's al Ghul. Like I said, learning how to be silent assassins, that kind of thing, carrying out top secret missions behind enemy lines during the Vietnam War.
So we see kind of Batman's training, but it wasn't like ninja training. It was this.
Yeah. And that's where a lot of his training comes from. Is his time under Ra's in Vietnam, doing these kinds of assassination missions. Now, that's not the whole issue. There is a little bit at the end, but I don't want to talk about that because I don't want to spoil it. Because the story is continuing to move forward into his future life as Batman. I do have a theory, though. This whole thing is narrated by an old Bruce Wayne in the year 2030. He is living in a nursing home. He's having trouble with his memory. We saw that in the first issue. I have a theory based on nothing in this other than just my own guess. But I have a theory that he's kind of an unreliable narrator and that he's misremembering his life story, and that maybe he remembers his life as Batman and being a crime fighter, but maybe he doesn't remember how it all happened, and maybe he's kind of like making up this story about I had to go to prison and I was in Vietnam. And I don't know that for sure. And like I said, there's nothing in this issue that leads me to believe that. It's just a guess. Total guess. I might be wrong. We'll find out as the series progresses. But very, very cool. Whereas the first issue was all about Bruce being a young boy, living a spoiled rich kid's life. This is him older in life, 18, 19, 20, in the late 60s, moving on in the early 70s. And, we're going to see that continue in the next issue. So, very, very cool. I liked it a lot. That's our A cover right there. We have some cool variants. This is by Paul Pope and Jose Villarrubia. Him jumping out a window. We have this really cool one from Dave Johnson. I like that one a lot. And then we have this
This
1 in
is cool.
25. Yeah, this 1 in 20. Well, this is a good example of what I'm talking about. This is the 1 in 25 Pew variant that we're selling for $19.99, and you can see them sort of wading through the river and the jungle. That's a lot of what this issue is like, of that right there.
Cool. Next up, I have, I guess, our first real tie-in to House of Brainiac. This is Power Girl #8. So yes, this is a tie-in, but I would say, not necessary for the overall House of Brainiac story, at least at this point, because this is more focusing on what's going on with Power Girl. So this actually begins in the park, where they even see Lois Lane doing yoga, where she was doing it in the beginning of this.
Okay.
And Power Girl, or Paige, as she's known in her kind of secret identity, along with Omen, are just kind of hanging out, and Omen's trying to teach Power Girl how to roller skate, which she thinks is really funny that Power Girl, who's can fly and everything, has a hard time roller skating. But that is when the Brainiacs and the Zarnians attack Metropolis. And immediately, Power Girl goes into attack mode. She's immediately in her costume. But she sees off to the side Omen has been taken. We know from the story so far that a lot of the characters are being rounded up by the Brainiacs.
Right, yeah.
So she's doing their best fighting, but of course she cannot fight against that many Brainiac drones. And then the Zarnians start attacking. It's too much for her. But she is wondering, why isn't she being taken? All the other heroes are getting taken, everything. So she's wondering about that. Even when she finally makes it home, Streaky has been taken, her cat.
Oh, wow.
So this is not good, but Superman comes to her and might have answers for why she wasn't taken and why he needs her help now that Metropolis is down all their super people. Now, there's still some heroes left in Metropolis. You have Steel, you have Natasha Irons, you have Hawk Girl. You've got a lot of those. So Power Girl is basically like, okay, I've got one section that I really need to patrol and make sure everything's okay. Well, of course, that is where she runs into Crush, Lobo's daughter, and you have to find out what happens when they cross paths. But also the interesting thing is there's a group of Zarnians who are hiding out. They're kind of loser Zarnians.
Okay.
That are hiding in a dumpster because they think, well, once this big attack happens, the Brainiacs and the Zarnians fly off like immediately, like they leave everything. But they stayed behind because they think, well, now there's no super people in the city. We can now take over. And they're going to be hatching a plot of their own, which it seems like it's going to fail because they're kind of doofuses.
Yeah.
But it's really fun to see. So it was a really fun issue of Power Girl. House of Brainiac tie-in, but mostly focusing on what is Power Girl doing and why wasn't she taken. And
I think issue 9 is a tie-in as well, I believe.
It should be because this, like, her interaction with Crush in this is only for like a page.
Oh, okay.
So you've got a lot of fun stuff coming up with this. But that is our A cover. Got some great covers. Like always, there's great covers for Power Girl. We've got this Mark Brooks variant, which is beautiful.
I like that.
We have this Forbes variant. And this one's really nice. This is the 1 in 25 Rodriguez variant that we're selling for $45.99.
All right. Well, next for me is Spider-Punk Arms Race number 3. And this one just continuing the fun romp in the on Earth 138. This issue, the whole issue, is a big fight between the Spider Band and Doc Ock, essentially. Now, Doc Ock has something that might give him the upper hand against the Spider Band. However, Riri has been working on something sort of in secret with a Spider-Man from another universe that might help even the odds against what Doc Ock has. And she doesn't say which Spider-Man specifically that it is, but she does say one line that reveals who it is with no question. Well, actually, once you see the thing, you also know. But before that, she says one line like, I know which Spider-Man she's been working with. And yeah, it's just a big old fight between Spider-Punk, Doc Ock, the rest of the Spider Band, and then Doc Ock's thing, and it's a lot of fun. So if you've been reading it, this one is, I think this one's probably more action-packed than the other two. So it's a lot of fun. If you like the first two, definitely grab this one. So that's our A cover right there. And then we have this really cool Nick Bradshaw variant. And then there is this Dan, right? Dan Hip? Dan Hip variant.
Okay, next up for me, I've got, speaking of Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man number 48. Once again, creeping closer to that issue 50. And what is the Spider Goblin that we're going to be getting? I feel like a little bit is revealed in here because we have Betty, who is Ned Leeds' wife. She is seeking this machine called the Winkler. I think it's a Winkler device, which supposedly turns people into goblins. And she wants to get it to prove that Ned was turned into a goblin. It wasn't like his choice, that it was, you can blame it on the machine. But also, Queen Goblin has been helping Ben Reilly as Chasm and his girlfriend Hallows Eve, and says they need the machine to help restore some of Ben Reilly's memories and get him back because he still feels like stuff is missing, like when he became Chasm. And of course, Spider-Man is there to try and stop them. And Spider-Man's helping Betty and with the Ned Leeds story. But both teams want this one device, and maybe there's a little bit of a hint to Spider-Man's connection with this machine that even he doesn't know about. So very interesting. But I think the best part of this issue was the art by Todd Knopf
Yeah, it looks
is
great.
fantastic.
Looks great.
Really, really fun. Especially, I really like Hallows Eve. I love seeing all the masks she pulls out. She pulls out another one that she used in the last issue that I think is super cool. So I thought this was a really fun issue, and I'm very interested to see how this ties in with the big stuff that's going to go on in issue number 50. But we've got our A cover there by Romita Jr. We have a Peach Momoko variant with Spider-Gwen not appearing in this issue. We've got our Vampire variant by Wu. And we have the Micronauts variant by Marquez.
Well, we got one more Spider-Man book to talk about. Staying with Spider-Man for a minute. This is Superior Spider-Man number 6. And in this one, I kind of feel like this is kind of, well, it's not really the end of the Supernova story, because I think there's more to come with that. But Supernova has been trapped after last issue. She's been trapped in this big like prism thing, and Spider-Man tries to free her, but Doc Ock has other plans for her. So obviously they fight over it, and then after that fight, when Doc Ock leaves, Spider-Man and Anna Maria, they attempt to defuse the damaged nuclear material in Spider-Man's gauntlets, because he's wearing the superior costume, the superior Spider-Man costume, and he's got like a nuclear device in there that is been damaged, and it's going to explode and destroy the nearby town, and that's no good for anybody. So Spider-Man and Anna Maria attempt to defuse that. But while all of that's going on, back in New York City, Doc Ock has, I don't really know how, I didn't quite get this out of the last issue, but Doc Ock has also kind of taken over all the spiders in New York. Not really sure how. I know that sounds kind of weird. And he instructs them to crawl inside anybody that they can find, and all the affected people turn into like Ock versions of themselves. Dalton, Cretin, and the die is cast and all that. So you have all of these citizens of New York now who are basically Doc Ockified. But the most notable one of those people that have been Ockified is Spider Boy.
Okay.
So now Spider Boy is going to go through his own Superior Spider Boy arc, complete. And we talked about it last Friday with the Spider Boy, one of the variant covers. You can see his own superior costume with the red on top and then the black. So more to come on all of that. But a really fun issue. You know, kind of felt like a classic '90s bananas Spider-Man book. It was a lot of fun. This is the A cover right here, and this is the only one that we have still available.
Cool, cool. Next up, I've got Star Wars Jango Fett number 2, continuing this really cool mini series by Ethan Sachs, and the art is by, I believe, Luke Ross. Yes. So Jango has been going after this priceless. It's called the Hope of Glee Anselm, and it's basically a thing that if he doesn't get back, a war between two people on this planet will commence. This is kind of, you know, chill them out when he gets it. But while he's hunting for it, he doesn't realize he is being hunted at a distance by the bounty hunter Aura Singh. You can see reflected in his helmet, first seen in Phantom Menace in a quick pod race scene. But they have hired someone to be like we're not going to attack him. We don't want him to know it's us. But they seem to have hired a bounty hunter named Vigor Struck, who we saw briefly in the previous issue, but it's a fairly new character. I mean, just the last issue. Um, and you'll have to see how Jango's leads are quickly drying up, and it's because of all these people gunning for him as well. So, really fun issue. A lot of really good action in this one. A lot of really cool, like, Jango just being really cool and menacing and walking into a room and getting what he needs. But a very fun issue, and I'm looking forward to reading the rest of this miniseries. We've got a couple of variants. This is kind of the tone of the thing. This is the Pagulian variant. It's kind of the look of the whole thing. We've got the Master and Apprentice variant by Ken McCauley with Luminaro and Dundee and Barris Ophi. Which, if you know anything about the history of the Clone Wars and everything, Barris Ophi, not a great person. And we've got a 1 in 25 Kamikoli variant we're selling for $19.99. And he does actually face off against these little guys, and they're pretty wicked.
Well, next, just wanted to tell you about Daredevil number 8, because this is the 60th. I was going to see if it says on the cover, like 60 years of celebrating 60 years of Daredevil. First premiered in 1964. Now it's 2024. Now, this is a $9.99 issue, but this is an oversized issue, and there's 6 stories inside of it. Now, for the purposes of this video, I only read the first one, which is the main story that's continuing through the series. But Daredevil and Elektra, they tangle with the Heat, which they've been tangling with throughout the course of the series so far, but also Bullseye. So it's always fun to get a Bullseye and Daredevil and Elektra story. And most of the issue is just that. However, we do learn who is behind the Heat and who is helping supply them with all these high-tech weapons. And as a Daredevil fan, it made me very excited. That's all I'll say about that. So we do learn that. And like I said, there's 5 other stories that I didn't read yet, but one of them is really cool. It's a tale set back when Daredevil wore the black armor, and it's written by D.G. Chichester, who just finished
It's like a continuation of that.
Kind of, sort of, and the art is by Ken Lashley, whose
nice.
work I love. So I cannot. It looks really good. I cannot wait. Oh, and it features the Punisher.
Oh, nice.
So you got D.G. Chichester, who wrote the original Black Armor stuff, Ken Lashley, who's a great artist, Daredevil and Punisher, all in another story, so I can't wait to read that one. And there's a couple others with Elektra, and I can't remember what the other one is. But yeah, a jam-packed issue celebrating Daredevil's 60th anniversary. So we have this really cool A cover right there, and we got some really cool variants. This is the one I pre-ordered. This is a J. Scott Campbell cover, which looks so good. And then this is our vampire variant with Daredevil and Elektra.
And lastly, for me, I've got Jackpot and Black Cat number 2. We've got that great Adam Hughes cover there. And in this one, it continues the story. There's this app that basically shows up on people's phones without them downloading it and kind of blackmails them into doing crimes. And it has now hit Mary Jane's phone, this app called Obscura, and she must fulfill, or bad stuff will happen to Paul, her partner. And he's trying to, he's like a tech guy from that other reality. He's trying to triangulate the signal, figure out who's behind this. But she's basically told, you need to break in and steal something from White Rabbit. And Felicia Black Cat's like, I'll help you out with this to make it go a little bit easier because I'm like the master breaking into stuff. But White Rabbit's kind of headquarters is like the back of like a candy shop, basically.
Oh yeah, right.
And there's a lot of hijinks that involve Black Cat chewing gum and then sticking it up in a machine and it explodes and it kind of helps continue all that on. But we do learn the shocking truth about who is really behind the app, and it's quite the twist. So another interesting issue of Jackpot and Black Cat. Continuing, we've got our A cover here by Adam Hughes, and then we have a Peach Momoko variant.
Well, I've got 2 more, just super quick. Just wanted to let you know about Green Arrow number 11. And this one's pretty cool. It's not a direct lead into Absolute Power, but there is some Amanda Waller stuff in here that's cool. Green Lantern, I'm sorry, Green Arrow. Green Lantern's not in this. Green Arrow steals the Sanctuary data that Amanda Waller wanted him to, and I feel like that's going to be figuring in Absolute Power somehow. But before he gives it to her, he demands that she tells him where Malcolm Merlyn is, because he wants to, get some revenge for all the stuff that Merlyn put him through. So she actually teleports him to where Merlyn is, but Merlyn is there waiting for him and has some surprises for Green Arrow. And we get a nice, quick sort of Cliff Notes version of Merlin's origin. So in case you're not really familiar with Malcolm Merlyn, you get a nice little concise background of who he is and his background with Oliver Queen. So that's a really cool A cover right there. And then we have this Travis Mercer and Andrew Dowhouse variant with Oliver and Connor. And then just wanted to tell you about Avengers number 13 real quick, because this is the final showdown between the Avengers and Orcus. Now, Orcus is not done in the pages of the X-Men books yet, but so this one kind of is a little bit out of sequence because they are done by the time this is over. But we do learn about a secret plan that the Avengers concocted to take down Orcus. They concocted it a while back, and now everything is kind of revealed. So it kind of answers some questions about something we saw in last issue. And the end of this issue is going to lead into Blood Hunt because they see something. They're like, they're like, what is that? So yeah, just if you're excited for Blood Hunt, this is going to sort of lead right into it because the next issue is the Blood Hunt tie-in with Captain America, Steve Rogers, Captain America, and Hercules, and Kate Bishop, and that whole crew. And I believe this is the only cover we have available.
So it means we're getting Blood Hunt. Is that next week?
May 1st.
May 1st.
So 2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that was a lot of comics we just went over, but hopefully you learned a little bit along the way and you're better prepared when you head into your local comic book store and pick up your comics. Or if you go on infinityflux.net right now, you know which ones to order while supplies last. So hope that information, guard it with your heart. Hope it helped you out.
But also tell everybody.
But after you get what you want, because you were smart and watched the video.
Yeah.
Reminder about, once again, our free comic book day video coming up very soon, probably next Saturday. It'll be posted at some point, but just keep your ear to the ground and you will know when it is posted. Some great stuff coming along the way, and stay tuned for our video coming up on Wednesday, where we'll be going over a lot of the books that you can pre-order by that weekend, so you don't miss out on any of the comic goodness. And I believe that is it.
If you made it all the way, leave us drop us an emoji. Isn't there like a fedora, like for like Dick Tracy's hat? Isn't there an emoji of some kind of hat? Leave us some kind of hat.
Yeah.
Emoji to let us know that you made it to the end with us.
Yes, absolutely. And remember to like, subscribe, and do all that good stuff. And until next time, bye.